In the quiet suburban streets of Dayton, Ohio, the locals had long learned a simple rule: never cross the yard of Mr. Thompson. Not even once. Behind the tall wooden fence, a German shepherd named Max prowled like a shadow of menace, a beast born from years of rigorous army training, hardened instincts, and perhaps bitterness from life confined behind bars and chains. Max wasn't just aggressive, he was legendary. Children whispered about him in hushed tones on the school bus. Adults crossed the street to avoid an accidental glance at the enormous dog who could, at a moment's notice, transform a calm afternoon into chaos. No one knew exactly why Max had become so vicious. Mr. Thompson, a retired Army sergeant with lines carved deep into his face, would mutter to himself while sipping black coffee on the porch, "Nobody can touch him. Nobody, not even me." Years of training had taught Max obedience in battle, but outside the rigid boundaries of military drills, he was a storm, unpredictable, raw, untamed. The mailman had tried once, as any brave soul might, handing the letters over the gate. Max had launched himself against the fence with a terrifying snarl. The mailman had barely escaped with his arm intact, and the story quickly spread through the neighborhood. The local kids called him the Untouchable, and it stuck. Even during summer barbecues, adults kept their distance, eyeing the chain-link perimeter like it contained a wild predator instead of a family dog. It was a crisp autumn morning, the kind that made leaves crunch underfoot and sunlight scatter in golden streaks across the streets. The air smelled faintly of damp earth and wood smoke from the chimneys. Mr. Thompson sat on his porch, the way he always did, coffee in hand, watching Max patrol the yard. The dog's ears twitched at every passing sound, his tail stiff like a warning flag. The retired sergeant sipped slowly, muttering under his breath, "Stay alert, boy, stay alert." Then came the sound that would change everything, a small, hesitant voice. "Hi, Max." The neighborhood collectively froze. From around the corner came a little girl, barely 7, her ponytail bouncing, a bright yellow flower clutched tightly in her small hands. She walked toward the fence without a single glance back. Every adult within view stiffened. The kids froze mid-step, mouths slightly open. Nobody had ever dared approach that yard. Max's ears snapped forward, his eyes narrowing. He growled low in his throat, a sound that made the hairs on the back of Mr. Thompson's neck stand up. The dog's lips curled, revealing razor-sharp teeth, his body rigid, poised to attack. A low, ominous rumble echoed through the yard like distant thunder. The little girl didn't flinch. She crouched slightly, extending the flower through the chain-link fence. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of courage no one her age should have to muster. "Here," she whispered softly, "it's for you." Time seemed to slow. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, holding their phones in anticipation, ready to capture the moment everyone assumed would end in disaster. Max leaned forward, sniffing the flower, his growl fatting just enough for those watching to notice the tiny crack in his armor. He lunged, but not at her. He lunged to sniff closer, hesitant, his massive frame quivering with the battle between instinct and curiosity. The little girl, Lily, extended her hand slowly, brushing the side of Max's muzzle. His jaw twitched, his hackles still high, but something shifted. The growl, once ferocious and threatening, turned into a low, almost questioning rumble. She looked directly into his eyes, and in that moment it was as if two worlds collided, one filled with fear and aggression, and the other with innocence and patience. Mr. Thompson, sitting on his porch, couldn't believe what he was seeing. He had trained this dog for years, exposed him to the harshest drills, the most disciplined regimens, and yet here was a child touching Max without incident. His heart pounded in his chest, a mixture of awe and disbelief. "Stay back, Lily," he shouted instinctively, but the words seemed hollow even as he said them. Max didn't move away. He stayed. Lily whispered again, a gentle, almost melodic tone. "It's okay, Max. I won't hurt you." She placed the flower near his nose, and he inhaled cautiously, then slowly, as if deciding whether to trust this tiny human who dared stand before him. The crowd of neighbors couldn't believe their eyes. A dog that had snapped at grown men, that had driven off delivery drivers, that had terrified an entire block, was now calm, almost serene in the presence of a 7-year-old girl. Children, emboldened by curiosity, crept closer to the edge of the sidewalk. Adults exchanged looks of disbelief, whispering, How is she doing this?" Mr. Thompson's mind raced. He had raised Max for obedience, for protection, for control, but he had never once considered empathy, never thought that patience, understanding, and a steady heart could reach a dog like this. He had tried everything, commands, treats, trainers, but nothing worked. And yet here was Lily, achieving in moments what had taken him years of frustration and fear. Max inched forward, placing his massive paw tentatively near the fence, his eyes never leaving Lily's face. The tension was unbearable. The dog was enormous, muscles rippling under sleek fur, yet his posture had softened just slightly. Lily mirrored the gesture, keeping her eyes soft, her movements slow, careful, deliberate. Then, as if to test the fragile bond forming between them, a stray leaf blew across the yard. Max snapped toward it reflexively, but the moment his eyes caught Lily's, he froze. His growl returned, quieter this time, more controlled, and he turned back to her. Lily smiled gently. "Good boy, Max, you're safe." Mr. Thompson exhaled slowly, a lump forming in his throat. For the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of hope. Could it be that a child, small and seemingly powerless, could reach the heart of a dog no one else dared approach? The neighbors stayed glued to the scene, their phones trembling in their hands. They had all expected chaos, but instead, they witnessed a miracle unfolding in slow motion. A bridge forming between fear and trust, between aggression and innocence, between a little girl and a beast no one could touch. And as Lily stood up, brushing imaginary dust from her jeans, holding the yellow flower like a shield, she whispered one final word, barely audible. "You can trust me, Max, I promise." Max's tail gave the slightest wag, a gesture so subtle, yet so profound it could not be ignored. In that instant, everyone watching realized that the legend of the untouchable German Shepherd had changed forever. The morning after Lily's first encounter with Max, the neighborhood was buzzing. Parents whispered nervously over fences, neighbors peeked out of blinds, and children tiptoed along sidewalks, eager to see if the story was true. Every eye was on the Thompson property, where the massive German Shepherd now rested in the sun, his head tilted slightly, ears alert but calm. For the first time in years, Max had not attacked anyone. Lily, however, was unfazed by the attention. She walked through the rustling leaves of the autumn morning with the confidence of a child who had nothing to fear, or at least, nothing she hadn't already measured. Her ponytail swayed as she approached the fence, carrying a small paper bag. Inside were treats, homemade by her mother for neighborhood dogs that had no one else to care for them. Max's ears perked up at the rustle, his eyes narrowing as he tracked her movement. "Hi, Max," Lily whispered, crouching just a few feet away from the fence. Her small hands extended the first treat, holding it gently. "I brought you something, just for you." The dog froze, a taut line of muscle and instinct, every nerve alert. His growl was low, cautious, and threatening, but it lacked the wild fury of the day before. Slowly he stepped forward, sniffing the treat. Then, with a delicate precision that made even Mr. Thompson's jaw drop, he took it from her hand, careful not to bite. It was an almost imperceptible act, yet the message was clear. Max was beginning to trust her. Mr. Thompson watched from the porch, coffee forgotten in his hands. "I've never seen him like this," he muttered under his breath, leaning forward. "Nobody has ever gotten this close to him. Not the trainers, not the vets, not anyone." Lily returned each day, rain or shine. She never rushed, never forced Max into submission, never let fear dictate her actions. Instead, she spoke to him softly, her voice like a melody in the dog's tense world. "It's okay, Max, I'm your friend." Her small hand stroked his fur, gentle but steady, and every time she did, the German Shepherd seemed to shrink in size, his aggression melting into curiosity and longing. Neighbors began to notice subtle changes. The snapping and barking decreased. Max no longer chased after every passerby. Yet anyone daring to enter the yard except Lily was still met with snarls and teeth. One afternoon, a neighbor, emboldened by curiosity and disbelief, attempted to reach through the fence. Max lunged, snapping inches from her fingers. The woman screamed, retreating to the sidewalk, shaking. "Don't even think about it," shouted another neighbor. "He's not tame, only that little girl can touch him." And that was true. Only Lily could approach. Only Lily had cracked the barrier that no amount of food, leash training, or authority had managed to penetrate. And it wasn't just trust, it was connection. Max had begun to recognize her not just as a human, but as a kindred spirit, someone who saw him as more than a dangerous dog. One afternoon, Lily sat cross-legged on the grass near the fence, whispering stories of her day at school. Max lay a few feet away, his massive body relaxed but alert, ears twitching at her every word. She described how she had painted a picture of the local park, of the trees in fall, of her best friend's birthday party. Max tilted his head as if understanding, responding with subtle movements. A soft wag, a shift of weight, a gentle nudge toward her hand. Mr. Thompson observed from the porch, utterly perplexed. "I've raised dogs for years, trained them for combat, for protection, and nothing. But this little girl, this tiny, fearless girl, somehow, she's doing what I could never do." His voice trembled slightly, a mixture of awe and fear. "How?" Then came the day of the test, though no one called it that yet. A delivery truck rumbled up the street, halting at the edge of the Thompson driveway. Max immediately stiffened, hackles rising, lips curling into a menacing snarl. The driver froze, gripping the steering wheel in terror. Years of experience had taught him that this dog could maim without warning. Lily, however, ran toward the scene, arms outstretched, her voice calm but commanding. "Max, it's okay. Don't worry." She positioned herself between the truck and the massive dog, her small frame a stark contrast to Max's muscular bulk. The neighbors watched in collective shock. The dog snarled, barked, and lunged, but something in Lily's presence held him back. His massive paws pounded against the earth, but he didn't cross the invisible line she had drawn. Slowly, he backed down, head lowered, muscles tense but restrained. Even the delivery driver, trembling and pale, managed a shaky voice. I've never seen anything like that." Mr. Thompson, meanwhile, realized a truth he had never considered. Max's aggression was not absolute. It was situational, fueled by fear and mistrust. But when confronted by someone who met his energy with patience and calmness, someone who refused to assert dominance and instead offered understanding, Max could be reasoned with. After the truck left, Lily crouched next to Max, her hand stroking his fur. "Good boy," she whispered. "See, it's okay. You're safe." Max leaned into her touch, a low rumble vibrating from deep in his chest, neither growl nor purr, but something in between, a sound that spoke of trust forming. Word of the little girl and the untouchable German shepherd spread quickly. Phones recorded the moments. Neighbors shared stories, and the local news even picked up the tale. Children began to dare closer to the fence. Adults looked on with a mixture of skepticism and awe. Max was still dangerous to anyone else, but Lily had achieved the impossible. That night, as the sun dipped behind the trees and the first stars appeared, Mr. Thompson sat on the porch, staring at the yard. Max lay nearby, head resting on his paws, eyes alert yet calm. Lily waved from the sidewalk before heading home, and Max's ears perked. She had left for the day, yet he followed her with his gaze until she disappeared from view. Mr. Thompson's heart weighed heavy. "How can a child do what a grown man with years of training cannot?" he murmured. But even as he questioned, he knew the answer was simple. Lily didn't see Max as a beast. She saw him as a living being capable of love and fear, and she had reached him in a way that brute force never could. The calm of the evening was broken only by the rustling of leaves and Max's soft sigh. But in that moment of peace, there was an unspoken tension, a question that lingered in the cool night air. Could this fragile bond survive the trials ahead? Could a little girl really tame the heart of a dog that no adult had dared to touch? And somewhere in the shadows, beyond the fence, the world waited to test them both. The days passed, and the neighborhood began to whisper not just about Max's ferocity, but about Lily's fearless visits. Children would peek through their windows, whispering excitedly, "She can touch him! She can touch him!" Adults shook their heads, some with awe, some with disbelief. They had never seen anything like this, an untouchable beast brought to calm by a child who seemed to hold some mysterious power over him. Lily, however, didn't notice the attention. She was entirely focused on Max. Every day after school, she carried her paper bag of treats and approached the fence with the same gentle courage. Max's eyes would track her movements, ears twitching, tail flicking occasionally with a hint of excitement. He had begun to anticipate her visits, sitting alert near the fence, his body tense yet patient. On one particularly crisp morning, Lily noticed something she hadn't before. Max would occasionally flinch at sudden movements, his eyes darting to shadows, his muscles stiffening. She realized that beneath his aggression lay fear, a fear rooted not just in instinct, but in memory, in experience, in the rough life he had endured before she arrived. "Don't worry, Max," Lily whispered, kneeling near the fence. She offered him a treat and spoke in that soft, melodic voice that had begun to unravel the layers of his guarded soul. "You're safe with me. I won't hurt you." Max took the treat carefully, pausing to meet her gaze. His massive head leaned slightly into her hand as she stroked his fur. For a brief moment, the world outside the yard didn't exist. There were no neighbors, no mailmen, no danger, just Lily and Max, two beings connecting in a language older than words. But peace was fragile. One afternoon, a curious neighbor, a middle-aged man with a love for adventure, decided to test Max's new calm. He stepped onto the edge of the yard, calling out, "Hey, buddy, who's a good boy?" Max snapped instantly. His growl filled the air like thunder, and the man stumbled backward, nearly falling. The onlookers gasped, but Lily didn't flinch. She stepped forward, hands outstretched, her voice firm yet gentle. "It's okay, Max. He's leaving. It's fine." The dog froze, muscles taut, eyes locked on Lily. Slowly, the growl faded. He shifted slightly, then backed away as if acknowledging her authority, not out of fear but out of trust. The neighbor retreated hastily, muttering something about a magical child and a crazy dog. Lily's mother, watching from a distance, finally understood why her daughter was so drawn to animals. "She has a gift," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "She sees what no one else sees. She feels what no one else can feel." Over the next week, Lily's connection with Max deepened. She began talking to him about her life, her day at school, her fears, her dreams. Max would respond with subtle signs, a soft wag of the tail, a tilt of the head, a nuzzle against her hand. Neighbors began to notice small but remarkable changes. Max no longer barked at the mail carrier, no longer lunged at the occasional cat that dared cross the yard. His aggression had not disappeared, but it was now contained, guided by trust and understanding. Mr. Thompson was fascinated. He spent hours observing Lily and Max, trying to decipher the secret of their connection. He had raised countless dogs, trained them for obedience and protection, yet nothing he had done could achieve what Lily had accomplished in mere days. "Maybe it's patience," he muttered one evening, leaning on the railing of his porch. "Maybe it's empathy, something I never learned to give." He watched as Lily knelt near Max, speaking softly, stroking his fur, her small hand a bridge to a world he had long given up on understanding. But the harmony between Lily and Max was about to face its first real test. One afternoon, as Lily approached the yard with her usual treats, she noticed a shadow lurking near the edge of the street, a man she didn't recognize. He lingered, his eyes fixed on Max with a strange intensity. Something about him made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. Max sensed it too. His ears flattened, his body stiffened, and a low growl rumbled in his chest. Lily paused, watching the stranger carefully. She didn't step back, but she didn't move forward either. She whispered, "It's okay, Max. I'm here. I've got you." The stranger took a step closer, and Max's growl escalated, sharp and threatening. Neighbors peeked through their blinds, some gripping their phones, anticipating disaster. But Lily remained calm, her small presence radiating reassurance. Max hesitated, torn between instinct and trust. He wanted to protect his territory, yet he had learned that with Lily, aggression was not always the answer. The man turned abruptly and walked away, disappearing around the corner. Max's growl subsided, though his body remained tense. Lily knelt beside him, rubbing his neck gently. "Good boy, Max. You were so brave." That evening, Mr. Thompson sat on the porch sipping coffee, his mind racing. "Who was that?" he muttered. "And why did you protect him? No, why did he protect you?" Lily's mother explained. She understands fear, not just in animals but in people too. She knows how to calm it, how to meet it without fighting it. But Mr. Thompson remained skeptical. He had seen too many dangerous animals, too many unpredictable situations. And Max was more than dangerous. He was a weapon in the wrong hands. Yet something about Lily had shifted him, softened him in ways that defied explanation. Over the next few days, Lily's visits became even more routine. She would arrive, speak softly, offer treats, and Max would respond with trust and affection. He began to follow her movements with his eyes, lean into her touch, and even lay his massive head on her lap for a few precious moments. It was a bond built not on dominance, but on understanding, a bond that no one in the neighborhood could break. And yet, even in their perfect connection, there was tension. Max had learned to trust Lily, but he had not learned to trust anyone else. Any sudden noise, any stranger, any unexpected movement could trigger his aggressive instincts. Lily's presence had calmed him, but the world remained full of unknowns, unknowns that could test their fragile trust at any moment. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the neighborhood was bathed in golden light, Lily sat near the fence, talking quietly to Max. "You're safe now," she said. "No one can hurt you, Max. Not while I'm here." Max tilted his massive head, eyes softening, but his ears remained alert. The growl had gone, replaced by a calm vigilance. He trusted her, but he was still aware of the dangers beyond the yard, and Lily understood that. She knew that trust was fragile, that it could be tested in an instant. Mr. Thompson watched from the porch, a mix of awe and apprehension in his chest. "She's special," he whispered. "And he's not just a dog anymore. He's a living, breathing lesson in patience, in empathy, in courage." And in that quiet suburban street, as the golden light faded into twilight, an unspoken tension hung in the air. The bond between Lily and Max had begun, fragile but unbreakable. But the world beyond the fence was unpredictable, full of threats that could unravel everything in a heartbeat. The air that afternoon was thick with tension. A gray sky hung low over the neighborhood, casting long shadows that stretched across the streets. Max lay near the fence, his massive frame coiled like a spring. His ears twitched with every distant sound, the creak of a gate, the rustle of a paper bag, the hum of passing cars. Lily approached, her small figure resolute, carrying her familiar paper bag of treats. She had grown used to Max's temper, yet she always treated each visit as a delicate ritual. But today was different. A rumble grew louder from down the street, a sound that immediately caught Max's attention. The neighbors, scattered behind curtains and across sidewalks, instinctively drew back. A delivery truck was slowly making its way down the road, and its driver had stopped at the edge of the Thompson driveway. Max's body tensed instantly, every muscle rigid, his growl low and menacing. The vehicle was large, its engine a deep rumble that seemed to echo Max's own internal alarm. Lily froze for a split second, assessing the situation. She had prepared for this moment mentally. Max's trust in her had grown, but no one, not even her, could erase his instincts. The dog was a predator, trained to protect, to strike, to defend. A stranger approaching the yard was a threat by definition. "Max," she whispered softly, kneeling slightly as she extended her hands. "It's okay. You know me. I've got you. Nothing is going to happen." The massive German shepherd barked sharply, teeth bared, muscles flexing as he lunged toward the fence. The delivery driver froze, gripping the steering wheel, panic rising. He had been on this route for years, delivering to thousands of houses, but he had never seen anything like Max. The stories about the beast had seemed exaggerated, until now. But Lily did something extraordinary. She stepped forward, small hands outstretched, her voice calm yet commanding. "Max, back, it's okay, don't worry." The neighbors held their breath. The dog, enormous and ferocious, seemed caught between instincts and trust. His massive paws pounded the earth, kicking up dirt and leaves, but he did not cross the invisible line Lily had drawn. Slowly, deliberately, Max lowered his body slightly, growling in a controlled rhythm. Lily inched closer, her eyes locked on his. "Good boy," she murmured, reaching through the chain-link fence, her fingers brushing the side of his face. Max paused, nostrils flaring as he smelled the familiar scent of trust that only she carried. He lowered his head slightly, not entirely submissive but respectful of her presence. The truck driver exhaled shakily, fear and relief mingling. I've never seen a dog like that," he stammered, inching backward. It listens to her." It wasn't obedience in the traditional sense. It was something deeper, something almost mystical. Max had learned to differentiate between danger and safety based on the energy that Lily radiated. Her courage wasn't reckless, it was deliberate. Her patience wasn't passive, it was active, unwavering, and informed by empathy. Mr. Thompson, watching from his porch, felt a surge of both pride and unease. He had raised Max, trained him for years, yet no command, no physical intervention had ever achieved what this little girl was accomplishing effortlessly. "I've never seen anything like this," he muttered under his breath. "Not in my career, not in my life, not ever." The truck finally drove away, engine fatting into the distance, leaving behind a stunned neighborhood. Max remained by the fence for several long moments, eyes fixed on the path the vehicle had taken, before turning to Lily. He nudged her hand gently with his massive nose, a silent acknowledgement of her role in diffusing the threat. Lily smiled, her own heart still pounding from the adrenaline. "See, Max, nothing happened, you were brave, I'm proud of you." As the days progressed, the delivery truck incident became a quiet turning point. Max's trust in Lily deepened, but the boundaries of his aggression remained intact. He had learned that with her, he could lower his guard, but the outside world remained unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Every new sound, every new person, every unexpected movement was a test, and Lily had learned that even the slightest lapse in vigilance could undo weeks of careful trust building. One afternoon, a group of neighborhood children, emboldened by Lily's bravery, crept toward the fence. They whispered excitedly, offering treats and attempting soft greetings. Max growled sharply, his massive frame tensing. Lily stepped between them and the dog, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "It's okay, Max," she whispered. "They're my friends. Nothing is going to happen." Max paused, sniffing the air cautiously. Slowly, he lowered his growl, inching back from his defensive posture, though he remained watchful. The children stared in awe, some holding their breath, realizing that Max's calm was contingent entirely on Lily's presence. Mr. Thompson watched silently, a mixture of admiration and concern etched across his weathered face. He realized that Lily was teaching Max something he had never learned in all his years of training: trust. Not obedience, not dominance, not fear, trust. But the neighborhood, as always, was unpredictable. A new factor emerged: the curiosity and envy of others who didn't understand the delicate balance Lily had cultivated. There were whispers of people wanting to see Max fail, to test his limits, to prove that the stories were exaggerated. Lily had managed to calm him, yes, but could she protect him from deliberate attempts to provoke him? That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the streets were bathed in golden light, Lily knelt near the fence, brushing her hand gently along Max's neck. "You were so brave today," she murmured. "I know it's hard, but you can trust me. I'll always be here." Max rested his massive head on her lap for the first time without tension, his eyes soft, his body relaxed but alert. He had passed his first real test, confrontation with a stranger, the rumble of danger, and the instinct to attack. And yet, the unspoken truth hung in the air. Every day forward would be another test, and the world outside the fence was full of unknowns. Mr. Thompson's mind churned as he sipped his coffee in the fading light. "She's special," he whispered again. "And he's more than a dog now. He's a lesson, a miracle, but miracles can be fragile." And so, as night fell over the quiet suburban street, a fragile peace settled over Max's yard. The first real test had passed, but everyone watching, especially Lily, knew that life with a beast like Max was never without danger. Every moment of calm was a victory, but every day could bring new challenges. The autumn air had turned crisp, and the neighborhood streets were littered with amber and crimson leaves. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the Thompson yard, where Max lay near the fence, muscles relaxed but eyes still sharp. He had begun to trust Lily, but beneath the calm exterior, there was a tension that few could see, a tension born from years of fear, isolation, and harsh treatment before he had ever arrived at Mr. Thompson's home. Lily noticed it first. As she approached, her small figure carrying her bag of treats, she paused at the edge of the yard, observing Max carefully. His ears twitched at the slightest sound, and his eyes darted nervously toward a shadow on the porch. Even with her presence, there was a flicker of wariness that never completely disappeared. She knelt near the fence, extending a hand toward him. "It's okay, Max," she whispered softly, her voice gentle yet firm. "I know it's scary sometimes, but I'm here. I won't hurt you." Max tilted his head, nostrils flaring, sniffing the air. He inched closer to her, massive paws crunching the fallen leaves beneath him. Slowly, he lowered his body to the ground, chest pressed lightly to the earth, but his eyes remained alert, scanning every corner of the yard as if anticipating a threat that only he could sense. Lily placed a treat near him, but he didn't take it immediately. Instead, he pressed his massive head against her hand, a small gesture of trust. She whispered again, "You're safe, Max. I'm not going anywhere." It was in these quiet moments that Lily began to understand something crucial. Max's aggression was not simply instinct, it was trauma. His past had left invisible scars, shaping his reactions, twisting fear into anger, mistrust into violence. Every sudden movement, every unfamiliar presence triggered echoes of experiences he could not articulate. And Lily, with her small hands and unwavering patience, was the first being to acknowledge his pain without trying to dominate or punish it. Her mother had always told her that animals could sense emotion in ways humans often couldn't. "They feel your heart, Lily," she would say. "They know when you're scared, when you're kind, when you're honest. You've got a gift." And now Lily saw that gift in action. She could feel the depth of Max's fear, the lingering shadows of a life that had not been kind to him, and she knew she had to tread carefully. Mr. Thompson watched from the porch, arms crossed, a mixture of pride and unease on his face. "I've never seen anyone reach him like this," he muttered under his breath. "Not the trainers, not the experts, no one." Yet, even as he marveled at Lily's courage, he knew the risk. Max could snap in an instant if provoked, and the neighborhood had already experienced just a fraction of his power. One afternoon, as Lily stroked Max's massive head and whispered calming words, a cat darted across the yard, a stray that had ventured too close. Max's body stiffened immediately, hackles rising, teeth bared in a flash of old instinct. He lunged, but Lily was faster. She stepped in front of him, hands outstretched, her voice steady. "No, Max, it's okay, don't." For a tense moment, it seemed as though his instincts would override everything. The neighbors gasped, fearing an attack that would confirm every story they had ever told about the untouchable beast. But then, almost miraculously, Max paused. His eyes met Lily's. The growl faded slightly, though his body remained coiled like a spring. Slowly, he lowered his head, inching back, allowing the cat to flee without incident. Lily knelt beside him, murmuring, "See, you're safe, nothing happened, you did so well." That night, as Max rested in his crate, Lily lay in bed thinking about him. She understood that the dog's aggression was not inherent. It was a shield, a defense against a world that had been cruel. And she realized that every interaction, every word, every gesture of kindness was slowly dismantling that shield. It was delicate work, requiring patience and courage, and one misstep could shatter the fragile trust they had built. The next day, Lily's mother approached Mr. Thompson cautiously. "You know," she said, "Lily isn't just brave, she understands him, she knows what he's been through." Mr. Thompson sighed, rubbing his forehead. "I've raised dogs for decades, seen every kind of behavior imaginable, and yet this girl, I don't know, it's like she speaks his language." But the fragile peace was about to face its first real external threat. A man appeared in the neighborhood that afternoon, a stranger with a hard gaze and a purposeful stride. He lingered near the edge of the street, watching the Thompson property. Rumors quickly circulated that he was involved with dogfighting rings and that he had been seeking a dog of Max's size and temperament. His presence was deliberate, predatory, and threatening. Max sensed it immediately. His growl rumbled low in his chest, hackles raised, tail stiff. Lily, standing near the fence, placed her small hands on his massive head. "It's okay, Max," she whispered. "I've got you. Stay calm. Nothing will happen while I'm here." The stranger stepped closer, eyes fixed on the dog as if challenging him, testing his reactions. Max shifted his weight, ready to strike at a moment's notice, but Lily's presence kept him tethered, reminding him that not all threats required aggression. The neighbors watched in stunned silence. They had seen Lily calm Max before, but now the stakes were higher. The man's intent was clear. Max's instincts screamed at him to attack, to protect what was his. Yet he remained in check, guided by the trust he had in Lily. Finally, the stranger turned and walked away, disappearing around the corner. Max's growl subsided, though his body remained tense, muscles ready for action at the slightest hint of danger. Lily knelt beside him, whispering reassurances, her hand stroking his fur. "Good boy, Max. You were so brave." That evening, Mr. Thompson sat on the porch, sipping his coffee in the fading light. He realized that Lily's gift was more than bravery. It was understanding, empathy, and patience. She had reached the core of Max's fear, a core that had remained untouchable for years. Yet even as he admired the bond, he felt a flicker of concern. The world outside the fence was unpredictable, full of threats that could undo months of careful trust building. Max's past trauma could resurface at any moment, triggered by the wrong person, the wrong sound, or the wrong movement. And Lily understood that better than anyone. She knew that trust was fragile, that it required constant reinforcement, and that Max's journey toward healing was only beginning. Every visit, every gentle word, every soft touch was a step forward, but every misstep could send them both tumbling back into fear and aggression. As the neighborhood settled into quiet night, Max rested his massive head on Lily's lap, eyes soft but alert. The first real threats had been navigated, but the shadow of danger lingered. Lily whispered, "We'll get through it together, Max, I promise." And in the silent night, under a sky dusted with stars, an unspoken tension hung in the air. Max had begun to heal, but the journey was far from over. There were still challenges ahead, still dangers lurking beyond the fence, and still a past that could return to threaten everything they had built. The crisp air of early November carried a chill that made the Thompson neighborhood feel both cozy and foreboding. Leaves rustled in the wind, swirling in golden and crimson eddies across the sidewalks. Max lay near the fence, massive paws crossed, eyes alert as usual. Lily approached, her bag of treats swinging lightly in her hand. She had grown used to Max's moods, to his moments of tension, and to his incredible ability to calm when she was near. But today, she sensed something different, a subtle shift in the air, a shadow that made her small body tighten in awareness. From the far end of the street, a figure emerged. He moved with a deliberate purpose, eyes scanning the yards until they landed on the Thompson property. He wasn't a neighbor. His clothes were dark and utilitarian, and his gaze was sharp, almost predatory. Lily's stomach tightened. She had a feeling this man was trouble, and Max sensed it too. His ears flattened, tail stiffened, lips curling in a low growl that rumbled from deep within his chest. "Max," Lily whispered, kneeling near the fence, her voice calm but firm. "I've got you. Nothing's going to happen, just stay with me." The man stopped at the edge of the street, assessing the yard, clearly aware of the dog's reputation. Whispers had traveled faster than the man's own steps. Max's size, strength, and untouchable ferocity were already legendary in the neighborhood. But this man didn't flinch. Instead, he took deliberate steps closer, eyes locked on Max, measuring him like prey measuring a predator. Max's growl deepened, a low rumble vibrating through the fence and into Lily's chest. She placed her hands gently on his massive head. "I'm here, Max. I've got you. You don't need to do anything. Not yet." The neighbors, peeking from behind curtains and across yards, began murmuring in alarm. Phones were raised, ready to record what they feared would be an inevitable clash. The man, apparently unfazed by the crowd, stepped closer to the fence, a slow smirk forming on his face. Lily, small and seemingly fragile against the towering figure of both Max and the stranger, did the only thing she knew how to do. She projected calm. Her voice was soft, unwavering as she whispered, "Max, stay. Don't move." The dog's massive body tensed, every muscle coiled, ready to spring at a second's notice. His instincts screamed at him to attack, to defend the territory, to protect the child who had earned his trust. But Lily's presence was a tether, a lifeline that reminded him of patience, of trust, of the bond they had cultivated together. The stranger suddenly reached toward the fence, slow and deliberate, as if testing Max's reactions. The German shepherd's growl rose in pitch, a warning shot that sent a shiver down the spines of everyone watching. Max's eyes locked on the intruder, and for a brief heartbeat, it seemed as though the dog might leap through the fence, obliterating the line of separation. Lily reacted instinctively. She stepped directly between Max and the man, her small hands outstretched toward the dog. "Max, it's okay. Stop. Don't." Her voice, calm yet commanding, carried authority that neither Max nor the stranger could ignore. The neighbors gasped. The scene was surreal. A massive dog, coiled like a spring, snarling and dangerous, restrained not by a chain or a leash, but by the unwavering presence of a 7-year-old girl. Max's growl faltered slightly. He shifted his gaze from the stranger to Lily, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. In that instant, the invisible line she had drawn became a lifeline. His instinct to attack was immense, primal, but her calmness, her patience, her empathy held him back. The stranger froze, a hint of surprise flashing across his face. Clearly, he had expected an unmanageable beast, not a dog under the precise control of a child. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he took a step back, still observing, still dangerous. Lily knelt closer to Max, her hands on his massive shoulders, murmuring soft reassurances. "You're safe, Max. I've got you. Nothing is going to happen." The stranger, realizing he could not provoke the dog without consequences, finally turned and walked away, disappearing around the corner. The tension in the neighborhood dissipated slowly, but the memory of the encounter lingered. Max remained alert, ears pricked, tail stiff, his massive body still coiled with residual tension. Lily stroked his fur, whispering, "Good boy, Max. You were so brave. I'm proud of you." Mr. Thompson emerged from the porch, watching silently. His face was a mix of awe and concern. "I've raised dogs for decades," he muttered, "trained them for combat, for protection, and I've never seen anything like this. She can calm him in moments when even I couldn't. But the world is still dangerous for him, and for her." Lily's mother approached cautiously, worry etched across her face. "Lily, you can't be out here alone with him if strangers like that are around," she said softly. "You have to be careful." "I know, Mom," Lily replied, her voice steady but thoughtful. "But Max trusts me, and I trust him. We'll be okay." But even as she spoke, the reality of danger remained undeniable. The man's presence had reminded Lily and Mr. Thompson alike that Max's world was not just the safety of the yard or the trust between a child and a dog. There were those who would exploit him, test him, or worse. The bond they had nurtured was fragile, and the outside world was unpredictable, full of risks that could undo all their progress in an instant. Over the next days, Lily's interactions with Max became even more deliberate. She reinforced trust at every opportunity, speaking softly, offering treats, and acknowledging his fears. Max responded with subtle cues, a relaxed posture, a gentle nuzzle, a cautious wag of the tail. But the lingering tension from the stranger's appearance remained. He had tested them, and in doing so, reminded everyone that safety was never guaranteed. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and shadows lengthened across the yard, Max lay near Lily, massive head resting gently against her lap. She stroked his ears softly, whispering, "We'll face it together, Max. Nothing is stronger than our trust." The German shepherd's eyes softened, a low rumble vibrating in his chest, neither growl nor purr, but something in between, a silent promise of loyalty and protection. Lily had earned his trust, but the events of the day had also etched a new understanding. The world outside was still unpredictable, and their bond would be tested again and again. Mr. Thompson sat on the porch, sipping his coffee in the dimming light. He realized that Lily's gift was more than bravery. It was empathy, understanding, and unwavering calm. She had reached the core of Max's instincts, a core that had remained untouchable for years. And yet, even he could see that the danger was far from over. As night fell, an unspoken tension lingered over the Thompson yard. Max's trust had been reinforced, his instincts restrained, but the appearance of the stranger had shown that external threats were very real, and that the bond between a little girl and a massive, aggressive dog could be tested in ways they had never imagined. The following week brought an uneasy calm to the Thompson neighborhood. The days grew colder, winds sharper, and the streets littered with the amber remains of autumn leaves. Max had become more attuned to Lily's presence, his fierce instincts softened by the trust she had cultivated. But beneath his calm lay a simmering tension. The memory of the stranger who had appeared days before lingered in his mind, and every shadow, every sudden movement made him stiffen. Lily approached the yard after school, her small frame swaying under the weight of her backpack, the familiar paper bag of treats clutched in her hands. She noticed immediately that Max's posture was tense, ears flat, tail rigid, body coiled as though ready to strike. Something had changed. His instincts screamed danger, yet he stayed by the fence, eyes locked on Lily, waiting for her guidance. "Max," she whispered, kneeling slowly, her voice calm and steady. "It's okay, I'm here. Nothing's going to happen, I promise." The massive German shepherd hesitated, sniffing the air. His growl was low, hesitant, a sound that vibrated with both fear and aggression. Lily extended a hand, offering a treat, but he didn't move. He was waiting, watching, calculating. Then from the far end of the street, the sound of footsteps approached. Heavy, purposeful, deliberate. The stranger had returned. This time he didn't hesitate. His gaze was locked on Max, his hands stuffed into his pockets as if testing the dog, daring him to react. Max growled, deep and menacing, the hair along his back rising like a dark ridge. The air seemed to thicken with tension. The neighbors, peering from behind curtains and over fences, instinctively stepped back, sensing that this was no ordinary confrontation. Lily didn't flinch. She stepped closer to Max, hands resting gently on his massive shoulders. "Max, listen to me," she said firmly. "Nothing is going to happen while I'm here. I've got you, trust me." The stranger stopped a few feet from the fence, smirking. "That dog of yours," he said, voice low and mocking, "I hear he's untouchable. but I'm going to find out if that's true." Max snarled, a low, guttural sound that rattled the air. His body coiled, muscles rippling under his fur, ready to explode. But Lily's calm presence held him steady. She stroked his ears softly, whispering, "We can do this, Max. We can handle it. Stay with me." The man took another step forward, reaching toward the fence. Max lunged, teeth bared, but Lily's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Stop, Max, now." For a heartbeat, the world seemed frozen. The neighbors gasped, fearing the inevitable clash. Max's instincts screamed to attack, to defend, to protect what he considered his territory. His massive paws pounded the ground, and his growl rose in pitch. But then something extraordinary happened. Max paused, glancing at Lily. Her eyes were unwavering, filled with calm authority and unwavering trust. Her small hands rested on his chest, steadying him, anchoring him. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered his head, muscles still tense but controlled. The stranger's smirk faltered. He had expected chaos, not control. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he withdrew, muttering under his breath as he disappeared around the corner. The tension hung heavy in the air, but the immediate danger had passed. Lily knelt beside Max, her small hand stroking his massive neck. "You were so brave," she whispered. "I knew you could do it. I've always known." Max leaned into her touch, his body finally relaxing slightly, though his eyes remained watchful. Mr. Thompson emerged from the porch, eyes wide with astonishment. "I've never seen anything like this in my life," he muttered. "Not from a dog, not from anyone. She's extraordinary." Lily's mother approached cautiously, her expression a mixture of pride and concern. "Lily, you have to be careful," she said softly. "That man, he won't stop. You can't always control Max if someone keeps provoking him." "I know, Mom," Lily replied. "But Max trusts me and I trust him. We can face this together." That night the events replayed in Mr. Thompson's mind as he sat on his porch, sipping cold coffee. He had spent decades raising dogs, training them for obedience and protection, yet he had never seen such a bond. Lily had reached the core of Max's instincts, the part that was wild and untamed, and she had calmed it, not through fear or dominance, but through trust and empathy. The following days were tense. The stranger's shadow lingered, rumors spreading through the neighborhood of his intent to test Max again. Lily and Max were vigilant, every walk to the fence, every visit layered with heightened awareness. Yet despite the tension, their bond grew stronger. Max had learned to discern threats more precisely, and Lily had learned to read his subtle cues, the flick of an ear, the twitch of a paw, the narrowing of his eyes. One afternoon the stranger returned, this time accompanied by a larger group. It was clear they had been observing, calculating, planning. They approached the yard slowly, smirking, testing the boundaries Max had come to understand. Max growled, a low, resonant warning. The air was thick with tension. The neighbors retreated, some hiding behind fences, some watching silently, phones ready to capture the confrontation. Lily stepped forward, small but fearless, placing herself between Max and the intruders. "Max, stay," she whispered firmly, hands resting on his massive shoulders. "We can do this. We don't need to fight." The group laughed mockingly. "That dog of yours is big, kid," one of them sneered. "Think he can handle us?" Max growled again, teeth bared, yet he did not move forward. Lily's presence held him in check. Slowly, deliberately, she reached into her bag and pulled out a treat, offering it to Max as a symbol of trust. He sniffed it, then looked back at her, hesitation flickering in his massive eyes. "Good boy," Lily whispered. "See, we don't need to fight, we're together, nothing can hurt us." The group's laughter faltered as they realized their intimidation tactics had failed. Max, enormous and dangerous, remained calm, but only because of the unwavering presence of a small girl who had earned his trust. Slowly they backed away, disappearing down the street, leaving the neighborhood in stunned silence. Mr. Thompson and Lily's mother exchanged glances. Pride and fear mingled in their expressions. Max had faced the ultimate test, yet it was Lily's courage, empathy, and trust that had triumphed, not brute strength, not aggression, not fear. That night, as Lily lay in bed, she whispered to herself, "We did it, Max, we did it together." Max, resting nearby, let out a soft, low rumble, neither growl nor purr, but a sound of calm affirmation. Their bond had been tested in the crucible of danger, and they had emerged stronger. The neighborhood had witnessed a miracle, a little girl who had tamed the untouchable, feared German shepherd through courage, empathy, and trust. But even in victory, the lessons remained clear. The world outside the yard was unpredictable, threats could return at any time, and the bond between trust and instinct was delicate. Max had passed the ultimate test, but their journey was far from over. The neighborhood had never felt quieter or heavier, with anticipation. Autumn had fully arrived, painting the streets with gold and crimson, yet beneath the serene appearance, tension lingered like fog. Everyone who had witnessed the events of the past weeks knew one thing: Max was no ordinary dog. His size, his strength, and his unpredictability made him a legend, and his bond with Lily, a little girl whose courage defied imagination, was extraordinary. But the world outside the yard remained dangerous, and the events of today would be their final, ultimate test. Lily approached the fence that morning, her small frame carrying her familiar paper bag of treats. Max lay nearby, massive body relaxed but alert, ears pricked. Something in the air told her that today was different. A chill ran down her spine, not from the cold but from instinct. Max sensed it too. His growl was low, almost imperceptible, a vibration that told Lily to be vigilant. From the far end of the street, the shadows moved. It was the stranger who had tested Max before, returning now with two companions. Their eyes glinted with intent, curiosity, challenge, and something more dangerous: malice. This was no longer a simple test of trust. This was a confrontation designed to push Max beyond the boundaries of control. Lily knelt at the edge of the yard, hands resting gently on Max's massive head. "Max," she whispered, her voice calm yet unwavering, "we can handle this. I've got you, trust me like always." Max's eyes met hers, immense brown orbs full of instinct, fear, and loyalty. He stiffened, every muscle ready to react, yet he did not move forward. Lily's presence anchored him. The dog who had once attacked everyone in sight was now restrained not by chains or fear, but by trust, by a connection forged in patience, courage, and understanding. The stranger stepped closer, his companions flanking him. "So, this is the infamous Max," he sneered. "Big, untouchable, and loyal to a little girl. Let's see if that loyalty holds when the real test begins." Max growled, a deep, menacing sound that made the hair along his spine rise. He advanced a step, only to freeze as Lily's small hands rested firmly on his shoulders. "Stay," she commanded, voice soft but resolute. "Nothing is going to happen. I'm here. I've got you." The stranger lunged forward suddenly, waving a stick as if provoking Max. The German shepherd reacted instantly, muscles rippling, teeth bared, a growl that echoed down the street. But Lily didn't flinch. She leaned into him, hands stroking his neck, whispering reassurances. "It's okay, Max. I trust you. You can trust me. Don't let them scare you." For a moment, time seemed suspended. Max's instincts screamed for action, for defense, for domination. Yet in the space between threat and reaction, he looked into Lily's eyes. He saw no fear, only trust, only calm, only the unwavering presence of someone who had earned his loyalty through understanding rather than force. And then, in a moment that felt almost miraculous, he stopped. The growl faded, muscles loosening fractionally, eyes softening just enough for the stranger to see that Max was no longer reacting purely on instinct. He was responding to trust. The stranger's companions froze in disbelief. They had expected chaos, a dog tearing through a fence or attacking without hesitation. Instead, they saw a massive beast controlled not by human dominance, but by the quiet authority of a child who understood him. Lily leaned closer to Max, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Good boy, Max. You're brave, you're safe. Nothing can touch you while I'm here." The stranger's smirk faltered. He backed away slowly, muttering under his breath. "This isn't over," he hissed before disappearing down the street with his companions, leaving the neighborhood stunned into silence. Max's massive body, still tense, leaned into Lily's touch. The growl had disappeared entirely, replaced by a deep, rumbling sigh, the sound of relief, trust, and calm. The neighborhood erupted in quiet awe. Phones recorded the moment, neighbors whispered stories they would tell for years, and even Mr. Thompson's eyes glistened with a mixture of pride and disbelief. "You did it," he murmured, stepping closer to the fence. "I've never seen anything like it in my life. You didn't just calm him, you tamed him. Not through fear, not through force, through trust." Lily smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her eyes. "It wasn't just me," she said softly. "It was Max. He trusted me and I trusted him. We did it together." That evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees and the neighborhood settled into quiet, Lily and Max sat near the fence. Max rested his massive head on her lap, eyes soft and calm, a gentle exhale escaping his chest. For the first time there was no tension, no anticipation of threat, only peace. Lily's mother approached quietly, kneeling beside her daughter. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "You did something incredible. You saw what no one else could see. You believed in him when everyone else was afraid." Max nudged Lily's hand gently with his nose, a silent affirmation of the bond they had forged. The massive dog, once feared by the entire neighborhood, had found calm and companionship through trust, empathy, and courage. Mr. Thompson joined them on the porch, his expression a mix of pride and awe. "I've raised dogs my whole life," he said softly. "I've trained the fiercest, the most aggressive, the most dangerous, and I've never seen anything like this. You've done what no adult could. You've reached him in a way no one else ever could." Lily smiled, her small hand stroking Max's fur. "He's my friend," she said simply, "and I always want him to be safe and happy. That's all that matters." The world beyond the fence was still unpredictable, full of dangers and challenges. But for that moment, in the quiet suburban yard, there was peace. Max had passed the ultimate test, and Lily had proven that courage, empathy, and trust could accomplish what fear and force never could. That night, as the stars glimmered above the neighborhood, Lily lay in bed thinking of Max. She knew the world was unpredictable, that there would always be challenges, and that Max's instincts could never be erased. But she also knew that the bond they shared was unbreakable. Through patience, understanding, and unwavering trust, they had faced the ultimate confrontation and emerged victorious. And somewhere in the yard, Max rested, massive body coiled in peaceful sleep, his heart tethered to the little girl who had seen beyond the ferocious exterior to the vulnerable soul beneath. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time, both of them knew something essential. Together, they could face anything.